Let's be honest, we are all a mess, and that is the common ground that we must come together and pick each other up.
Good morning. I want to, I've never really been interested in doing a TEDx talk. It was nothing that ever occurred to me oh, I got to do it. I work with teenagers, mental health. I work with families in school communities all over the world. But when I got a phone call and it was the kids who were like, hey Jeff, we want you to be the speaker, I was like, hey man, how can I turn that down? So having said that, this is hard for me. I'm not a big stage type. I'm an intimate speaker. I'm honored, I'm excited to be here, and so let's rock and roll with this. I've had the honor of traveling all over the world for 25 years working with young people. Got the greatest job in the world. I'm diagnosed with mental illness. I'm proudly a man that lives with mental illness. And some people are like, Jeff, why do you say proudly? I think when you learn to accept and you acknowledge it and you own it, you don't worry about the superficial things anymore. For a man that lives with mental illness, major depression, bipolar type 2, post-traumatic stress, you don't worry about little things like what people might say, what people might think. My biggest challenge every day, my self-care, bringing my anxiety down and living the most healthy life that I can live. And so I think, God's plan, my purpose, it kind of aligned, and I'm truly honored to be able to do this. And I also think to myself, in 18 minutes, how am I going to share the why behind America's largest epidemic? It's a healthcare crisis. I think the largest healthcare crisis of our time. If you were to ask me, hey Jeff, what do you think is the most important thing we can give young people? I don't even hesitate, I say self-esteem. And one of the challenges I have is, as a parent, as a coach, as a trusted adult, as a teacher, we tell our kids, hey, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful, you've got the ability, I believe in you, you can do this. But if they don't believe it themselves, our words don't mean anything. And so why am I successful? 25 years all over the world, I've come to realize young people ask two questions. And our job is to answer those two questions. Can I trust you? And do you care about me? Young people are afraid to open up because they're afraid that we as that trusted adult, that parent, we're going to try and fix their emotions, tell them that, you're young, there's more fish in the sea, you're going to go get over it. It's not a big deal. They don't want that. I think it comes down to a couple of things, and I'm going to share with you very quickly. Social media depression, you've heard of it. If you spend more than 4 or 5 hours a day on screen time, you're 70% more likely to have major depression in your life. And I'm going to tell you something I hear all the time. Well, bullying this, cyberbullying that, and this is why. Ladies and gentlemen, suicide is very rarely the cause of one thing, such as bullying or cyberbullying. Now, bullying or cyberbullying can certainly be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But some 90% of the time, it comes down to mental illness, depression. And I don't have the time to get into all the different types of depression, but I'll tell you this. We live in a world where we have given our young people these rights and privileges that our young people, their frontal lobe maturity, they're not capable emotionally of handling the consequences that come as a result of the emotional effects that social media has on young people. Young people react. Adults, we kind of learn to respond. We take time to think. We walk away. We ignore. Mental health professionals say the safe zone, 1 to 2 hours a day. And so I think parenting is a lot harder today, and I think parents really have to step up. And so one thing, if parents aren't going to do it, I want to challenge you guys to do it. Mandate off time. I'm a believer that all schools should eliminate cell phones during the day, because it's going to give you the opportunity to turn it off and engage. And when you engage social interaction, that's going to fix coping skills, problem-solving skills. That's going to raise self-esteem. We learn how to communicate. And when you think about this, as parents today, our adolescents are really in trouble. Because for us, it's like you just take the iPad and it's easier. Well, it's easier now. but later it's going to have an incredible effect on that generation. Proactive teen mental health. I think teens, I'll simplify 3 things I think teens need. Number 1, sleep. Mental health professionals say you need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I'm going to simplify it. I don't know if that's realistic. I think you need 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night. And if you're ugly, you need more. Now, I'm not saying ugly, but you get it. Number 2, nutrition. I just lost 100 pounds. I don't do any more soda. I don't do any more fruit juice. I try to really limit my processed food, but I'm going to simplify this. Young people are consuming over 200 grams more sugar a day than you should be allotted in a 24-hour period. And so you know what directly relates to depression? Sugar. So nutrition, let's really focus on what we're eating. Let's learn to eat a little bit better, more energy, you're more present. And number 3, listen, put the phone down a little bit and get more engaged, more activity. Your school offers clubs and sports. The more involved you are, the less likely you'll make negative choices, bad choices. The more you're going to surround yourself with more like-minded people, and the greater your self-esteem. I mean, it's really simple. So let's look at where this comes from. Here's my theory. It's basically very simple. Time online, teens are more likely to be depressed. That makes sense. Dr. Thomas Joyner of Florida State University, he has this interpersonal theory on suicide, and 2 components are people feel alone and people feel that they're a burden. And so look at this. Teens more likely to be depressed. When you're online, it's easier to just be like this and you feel like alone, like you're not having any meaningful relationships. And on the other hand, when you're constantly doing this, you feel like the expectations that aren't being met, you feel like you serve as a liability. You feel like you're disappointing people. And then you start to feel like you're a burden. And so there's another thing, the expectations, not just from parents and teachers, but expectations from our peers and the expectations you put on yourself. I want you to stop focusing on expectations, because when an expectation is not met, we become disappointed. And so disappointment can lead to sadness. Sadness can lead to I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy can then lead to depression. Depression can lead to self-harm. Self-harm can lead to suicide. I think social engagement is really important. Like I talked about, look, it builds self-esteem. It teaches coping skills, problem-solving skills, and communicating. I think it's important to we need more social and emotional learning. And if people are not going to automatically put that into your lives, you're smart enough to just say, okay, here's what's important. Here's what I need to do. So it's simple. Here's the bottom line. Online hurts mental health. Social engagement benefits mental health. Now, I'm not saying we need to totally eliminate it, because this isn't going away. This is here to stay. And I don't have time to get into the dopamine effect, but dopamine, you're on Snapface, you're on Insta, and you're group texting, and all of a sudden, he said, she said, he did what, she did what, OMG, it's going down tomorrow, and you're like, I gotta check this, I gotta check this, I gotta see this, oh gee, Bob, and so you're like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And then people say, well, what about schools giving Chromebooks and everything? Listen, when you're home in your bedroom and you're doing an English paper, there's no dopamine effect to doing homework. And so here, smartphone, 2012, I knew we had an issue when in 2012 I'm home, I'm watching the Masters. My daughter sitting on the couch, she texts me, and I'm like, you could have just said that. I knew then we had a problem. 2012, they say 50% of our young people had access to smartphones. Listen, 6 years here. 2015, they say 73%. Today, nearly every child, teen, young person has access to smartphones, social media, internet, YouTube. Again, we're given rights and privileges that we're not capable. We can't, the emotional effect of it. 2018. Surveys say 35% felt alone and a burden over this 6-year period. Alone and a burden are basic symptoms of maybe being suicidal. So again, this proves the fact. And what I said earlier, they also did a survey on teens and homework. And the surveys, they never changed. So that rules out academic pressure. What we do know, 160,000 teenagers last year were brought into the emergency room because of a failed suicide attempt. Of those 160,000, 35% will try and succeed. Past 6 years, suicide in adults, 20% increase. Suicide in teens, 35%. Schools are scrambling. I've had guidance counselors cry in front of me when I say, I understand, but we got to do more with less. We're in that period where we all have to do more. Parents are questioning. In the next decade, we'll have a 31% increase in teen suicide and drug and alcohol-related deaths. Ladies and gentlemen, it's simple. It's not just smartphones, but I'm going to tell you this. Think about relationships. I think young people need to have the courage to open their heart and speak to trusted adults. And I think parents and trusted adults need to want to spend more time with young people, kind of at their level. I love old people. Old people smell and they don't care. Old people, the wisdom and experiences. My wife's grandpa, 97 years old, his name was Ken. He dropped out of school in the 8th grade, never went to the Second World War because he started a business and provided food for the community. To make a long story short, he lived 2 miles from us when we lived in Cape Cod. And he came over one Thanksgiving, and that moment hit me. I thought, I want to spend more time with him. And I made the decision that every day that I was home, I would drive 2 miles across the bridge, and I'd pull up in his driveway. I'd walk up the patio, and he was always sitting in his chair. And I remember walking up there thinking, Grandpa's waiting for me. He wasn't waiting for me. Old people don't do much. They wake up, they go to the chair, bathroom, bedroom, chair, bathroom, bed. They go to the bathroom in their chair. Just eat my pants. I remember I walked in the house, and you always had to shake his hand. And I remember Grandpa used to make buying decisions about the handshake. He always invited me to sit down. He never sat down until he invited me to do so. I never realized it. I sat on a stool and he had a chair. And one day my mother-in-law said to me, Grandpa bought you a chair. He loved our visits so much that he bought me a chair just like his. You guys have grandparents? You ever wonder why you and your grandparents have such an awesome relationship? I'll tell you, because between you and your grandparents, there's a common enemy. Your parents. You know how grandparents, they don't talk much. They just sit there and they want to hear about you. How's school today? You doing good? So whenever I sit down, my grandpa would talk, and oh gosh, I remember these days. How you doing, Grandpa? Good? Yeah. You look good. Nice day, huh? Sky is out. Sky's always out. And Grandpa would just sit there and he'd be like, I want to share you 3 things I'll always remember. Because when he would talk, you'd listen. He sat there. The 3 most powerful words that you can share with someone. I love you. Never talked about his money. Never talked about his home. Talked about family. And the second thing, everything was 3 to him. Most courageous words that you could say to someone, I'm sorry. And I'd be sitting there like, Grandpa, that's 2. You're wise, but he didn't say buddy. I remember the day that I pulled up. I was walking off the patio and Grandpa wasn't sitting in his chair. I walked in the house, Grandpa was laying on the kitchen floor. He had fallen and broken his hip. And he couldn't get up, and I'd get over there, I'd get down on my knees. I said, Grandpa, it's gonna be okay. And I called 911, and everybody knew Grandpa, everybody knew Ken. 97 years old, he walked 4 miles a day, every single day. He'd go to Dunkin' Donuts, and they knew him. He'd grab a jelly donut and milk. And so when I called 911, they knew who we were talking about. And the police, they arrived, the paramedics, the fire department, Baywatch, Hawaii 5-0, Chips, everyone showed up. And they rush him up, they do emergency surgery, they bring him back to his hospital room, the family comes in, and that night, we're going out to dinner. And my wife stopped me and she said, honey, why don't you stay with Grandpa? I said, why don't you stay with him? He's your grandpa. And I remember my wife said, everybody thinks Grandpa would like it best if you were there because you were the closest one to him. Ladies and gentlemen, that night, the glow of the machines lit up the room. I just sat there and I held his hand and learned how to spell the word love that night. T-I-M-E. Time. I think our kids need time. I think they need understanding and patience. We have to overcome that I'm a burden relationships. We have to overcome that I feel alone relationships. And to make a long story short, the next day, the doctors gave him maybe 48 hours to live. His heart capacity was less than 10%. I sat there that night, family went home. I held his hand and said, I love you, Grandpa. He said, thank you. I said, you could go, Grandpa. I'll take care of the family now. And that next morning, I watched Grandpa pass away, and they put the sheet, they put it over his head. And I want to ask you, as the trusted adults, I need to invite you to be more present in our kids' lives, volunteer, help. And to young people, see something, say something. Know something, do something. Find a trusted adult in your life and don't ever be afraid to ask for help. I hope I made sense. Thank you for your time.